Sorry, you startled me. Anyways, it's Radio Free Innsmouth episode 406, and we're going to be talking about some Goatmoon. Because I like them a lot, and I think probably most serious modern black metal fans are down with the moon as well. I would say that they're probably the most important currently active Finnish black metal band, but that wouldn't be entirely true, because Goatmoon's not really a band. It's more like you got this fella, Black Goat Grave Desecrator, and he either records all the instruments himself, or else he'll get together session guys from a whole host of Finnish bands, notably Stormheit, Moon Citadel, Barathrum, Azazel, Pest, White Death, Grieve, Satanic Warmaster, even Moon Sorrow at one point, I believe. And he'll put out, you could call it black metal. I've heard some people call it black metal, folk, punk, rock against communism, whatever you call it. It's some of the best black metal adjacent stuff that I've ever heard. And it's been a pretty important gateway band for me getting into more modern black metal, whereas I used to be more strictly old school. You know, like before I heard Goatmoon's 2011 album Varjot, with a few exceptions like Averse Sephira or Ruins of Beverast, I was like, black metal for me stopped probably around the year 2000. If it wasn't for Goatmoon, I wouldn't have actually decided to give Satanic Warmaster a serious chance. And from there, I wouldn't have gotten into Werewolf Records. From there, I wouldn't have explored the larger modern-day Finnish black metal scene. And if that had been the case, I probably wouldn't have heard what for me has been the black metal album of the year, Moon Citadel's Starred On Usurper. Although, to be fair, it's about tied with Stangariga's Zastribano Horo that I covered last week. Point is, Goatmoon, very important band to me. And I've covered them a couple times on here. First on episode 61 from a billion years ago, although I think that episode might be invisible at this point due to YouTube's thoughts around certain ideologies of the...
You know what's amazing? Hitler is the best.
Persuasion. And again on episode 205, which was all about the fourth Goatmoon album, Voito Tai Valhalla. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future you see me doing more episodes about single Goatmoon albums. That's just how unique and interesting I find Goatmoon to be. But for this episode, I figured we'd pull a bit of a Janet Jackson and ask,
but what has he done for you lately?
Because there have been fairly major developments in the Goatmoon sector since I last talked about them. For starters, in 2023, they put out a new full-length album, What Once Was Shall Be Again. And I remember when this album and the split with Wolfnacht and Thy Serpent that came out right before it were new, a lot of people were complaining. They thought my boy Black Goat lost the plot, and I actually kind of let that sort of discourse poison my initial appraisal of this era of Goatmoon. Specifically, people were saying that Black Goat's vocals had kind of shat out. And honestly, after having re-listened to the newer Goatmoon stuff with new ears, I mean, maybe it's not as crazy vocally as it used to be, but that's got less to do with the music itself and more to do with the fact that, particularly around 2011, homie was one of the best black metal vocalists of all time. I believe that's what's known in the common parlance as that good shit, my brother. But honestly, newer Goatmoon vocals, if you were to hear them coming from any other band but Goatmoon, you'd probably be like,
that's pretty dang good. It's not half bad.
But more importantly than that, you can't evaluate Goatmoon the same way you would like Pop Idol, alright? This is black metal.
야, 나를 완전 제대로 잡아.
Well, no offense, man, obviously, but when it comes to black metal, it's not just the vocals that are important, it's the music underneath that determines whether or not a band is doing good work. And in the case of the most recent Goatmoon full-length album, 2023's What Once Was Shall Be Again, this is some quality black metal stuff. And it starts out in a very adventurous manner for Goatmoon in that it leads off with an 8-minute long song, which is not something we're used to seeing from old Black Goat Grave Desecrator. First riff on the album, classic fucking Goatmoon. Sweeping and melodic, majestic, and surprisingly uplifting in tone for black metal. But then we get into the next set of riffs and we see that they're developing the almost power metal inflected style from Stella Polaris. Very Finnish sounding. Then the vocals come in and I don't think he's lost it to anywhere near the degree that a lot of people are grumbling about. This scream's so long and powerful, I actually had to edit it for time. Then we hit a full stop with a very declarative sort of introductory riff before heading into the next vocal section, which again features a very long scream and a stormy, evil-sounding riff, which then shape-shifts into a more mid-paced, almost rack or RAC, whichever term you prefer to use. I get shit for using either of them, so I've given up caring about the distinction.
Go fuck yourself!
I'm really vibing with this rock and roll drum beat, Satyricon-esque guitar riff, early Satyricon of course, combined with the flutes and such. And then when we head back into the faster black metal, it's less hostile and aggressive than it was earlier and more just kind of mysterious and mystical. This song earns its 8-minute length by effectively transitioning through a variety of different moods and atmospheres in that regard. Speaking of that sort of transition, back to the aggression. We're heading into another very old school Nordic sounding section, even featuring the enslaved style orchestra hit. Some people get mad when I call that particular keyboard patch an orchestra hit. To them, I say again,
Go fuck yourself!
and the enslaved influence here isn't just limited to the keyboard patches used. This whole riff reeks of Viking Igor Veldi, which is my personal favorite enslaved album, so I love it. Then the clean vocals come back in, and they're incredibly well done. I believe this is the guy from Storm Height and Moon Citadel. He is listed in the album's credits, and it sounds a whole lot like him, so I'm pretty sure that's the fucking guy. Who's ever doing it, it fits the music very well. Black Goat knows how to pick them when it comes to these guest spots. Then they bring back that more aggressive riff from earlier, but they do something interesting. They change up the drum beat, almost kind of slow down and smush the riff a little bit, kind of stretch it out. Then eventually they put a punk drum beat under it and speed it back up, but they add this sort of bar chord shimmery flash to the tail end of it instead of resolving it in the same way that they did earlier in the song. That's why it's 8 minutes long, okay? There's lots of subtle little things like that going on in this track. This whole album's pretty much all bangers. My personal favorite song on this release would have to be the title track, What Once Was. It hits that mid-paced, sort of stompy, anthemic black metal sweet spot that Goatmoon and Satanic War Master before him were always so good at. It's kind of funny how Goatmoon has sort of become this underground phenomenon, sort of a handshake band to let the other black metal fans know that you're cool. Because honestly, with the exception of certain elements of that first album, Goatmoon's always been very accessible and easy on the ears, but not in a bad way. I feel like were it not for certain ideological provocations, this band honestly would be huge. But hey, if it takes that ideological stuff to keep them honest, keep making great music like this, I guess I'm all for it. Also like the cool narration, very 90s, spooky, unironic sort of black metal. Kinda sounds like something you might hear early Emperor do. Or maybe Limbonic Art or something. So What Once Was Shall Be Again. Very apt title for this album because it's a triumphant return for Goatmoon. But the thing about Goatmoon is it's kind of like Nunslaughter and Sabbath. They've got these full-length albums, those are all essential, but there's also this wealth of singles, EPs, split 7 inches, that sort of thing, that in many cases are just as important as the full-length albums. And Goatmoon has been no slouch there in recent years. Their most current release was a single entitled Alien Terminator, which kind of shows off Goatmoon's wacky sense of humor in that it's set up to look like an old Italian exploitation movie. You got the title itself being a combination of 2 different popular movie titles, which was something the Italians were very much into producing back in the 70s and 80s. You got that real retro art style showing Mr. Black Goat Grave Desecrator is some kind of retro cyborg character, and the whole poster's even in Italian. But then it's called Alien Terminator when you know Goatmoon's very Finnish nationalist bent. That title takes on a more sinister character. He leans into the 70s giallo sleaze aspect by incorporating this very synthetic, almost keyboard-esque bass line, which introduces the main riff. That's very much in a punk, rock and roll, black metal fusion sort of style. I feel like Fenriz would be a big fan of this riff. And there is some Norwegian involvement here, as the vocals on this track are done by Maniac from Mayhem, or as the movie poster for the album title says in Italian,
Con Maniac dei Leggendari Mayhem.
This part right here is totally Dark Throne sounding, but they're going to bring back some of that 70s sleaze factor in the riff's second repetition, where they bring in these real spooky goblin-style keyboards. It's a real short, punky sort of Goatmoon song, and it's a fun little single. A year earlier in 2023, he put out another single release, this one entitled Witch King, featuring one of those classic
Fucking gross!
Goatmoon joke covers, where he's completely in the nude, and if you were to pick this album off of somebody's shelf, you'd probably be like,
That's a penis.
surprisingly, that cover doesn't signify that this is another very punkish release from old Black Goat. Instead, this particular single features a very sophisticated, almost French-sounding sort of black metal. I'm actually getting a whole lot of peste noir in how he uses a combination of dissonance and melody with an overall melancholic feeling. Then when the drums kick in, we slide a little bit farther down the black metal evolutionary ladder, bringing in some first album Burzum influence and kind of combining that with the very French-sounding percussive black metal style. You got these crunchy palm-muted riffs floating on top of this bed of ethereal synth in an inimitable fashion that only Goatmoon could make work. As if to underscore the suspected peste noir influence, they then launch into a very well done melodic, folky sort of guitar solo on top of this rolling, triplet-heavy double bass drum beat that gives off notes of Wagner, Odegaard, and Vulcanize. So you can tell that homeboy Black Goat is keeping his black metal listening current in addition to appreciating the old classics. Overall, a solid little bit of particularly nasty sounding black metal. As far as split releases go, one of the standouts for me was 2019's split with the noise artist Bizarre Uproar entitled Vaski Vitu, which means something very
Fucking gross!
in Finnish, and appropriately enough, the cover here features some rather exploitative nudity, although in this case, we've got more of a type situation going on here. This one does lean more into that black metal punk side of Goatmoon's sonic equation, and it does so with great aplomb, featuring one of those signature Goatmoon lead guitar lines soaring over the cacophonous din to eventually finally lead us into the song's main riff, which is a real fucking burner as you're hearing right now. Very much in keeping with an earlier style of Goatmoon riffage, a la Varjot, or even Finnish Steel Storm. Then you get this nice little refrain section here, featuring doubled up vocals. Not sure who's doing the lower pitched bits here, but it almost sounds like Roman from Hate Force. If it is all Black Goat, I would suggest doing more of these lower pitched vocals might cut down on some of the whining from the non-believers in the audience, because they're very well done. Also, this transition very rock and roll back into a repetition of that lead guitar from earlier. Nice, compactly written, punk sort of black metal song. But my personal favorite recent split release from Goatmoon comes in the form of Summer Forest, which came out this year, so technically I believe this is the newest Goatmoon material available. It's kind of a sequel to another split that happened almost 15 years ago that was entitled Winter Forest. Both of these splits are with another noisy sort of act entitled Dead Reptile Shrine, but more importantly for my own eardrums and sanity, both of these forest songs are some of the most lengthy and well-written Goatmoon compositions to date, particularly this new one, Summer Forest, which at the moment may in fact be my personal favorite Goatmoon song. This song is very far removed from the punky black metal of the other Goatmoon split I played for you, although once we eventually get to it, there will be a little bit of that going on. But a lot of this release is dedicated to very post-rock, almost neoclassical sound layering, like what you're hearing right here, where we started out with the drums, bring in that bass line, then bring in these very dungeon synthy keyboards. It's a track that's very long, subtle, it takes its time, but there's enough going on to keep you interested. And then when the black metal does kick in, it does so in classic Goatmoon fashion, with some more of that very rock against communism, early absurd sounding triumphant lead guitar over a bed of ambient, shuddering walls of black metal chords. that unfurl into some, again, very early enslaved, early Satyricon sounding riffage. Then that lead guitar comes back with a new variation, adding a second guitar line to it. That's what I mean when I say this release takes its time. It's long, it's subtle, it's this journey where they keep introducing new musical elements very gradually. For instance, when that very early Satyricon, early enslaved riff comes around the second time, it doesn't just go into another repetition of the lead guitar line. Instead, it serves as a launching platform for a journey into an entirely different style of black metal. This time around with its very long-form melodies, droning character, dreamy folkish quality. More than anything else, it reminds me of Polish black metal like early Graveland and Velez. With its shimmery, cleanly played guitar lines and very well done, wordless, clean vocals. After that brief bit of Silesian exaltation, we then hit acoustic guitars. Very well done acoustic guitars, spitting out a melody that will come to define the rest of the song, as it will occur in 3 different forms, the first of which is its introduction via these acoustics over some nature sounds. Then the black metal comes back in, and we're hit with that same melody, just, in this waltzy, mid-paced Goatmoon form. It's a very amorphous sort of melody, not in the sense that it sounds like the band Amorphous, although it kind of does, but in the sense that it's got this weird quality where it's hard to pin down, and it's constantly shifting, both in terms of the notes utilized, but also in terms of the style that it's played in, because after the black metal fades out again, we get hit with some dungeon synth. Some very good dungeon synth, I might add. But if you pay attention to this melody, you can hear echoes of both what those acoustic guitars were doing way back when, as well as the distorted lead guitar from the last black metal section. This is a really long, complicated, and subtle track that's got all sorts of little bits you only notice after you've gone through it a few times. For instance, the percussion is a lot more subtle than you might expect. Back during the acoustic guitar section, it came in with this sort of percussive highlight. That sort of striking sound segmenting off the different musical phrases. This technique is then repeated towards the end of the dungeon synth section, but with a much harsher sort of drum beat. And at the end of the song, that drum beat ends up swallowing everything else, just leaving you with this sort of shamanic pulse. Very meditative. It really is this sort of profound black metal epic that shows off Black Goat's mastery of a variety of different forms of black metal artistry. That mastery of diverse black metal forms is also demonstrated on Goatmoon's 2021 release Silver Serpent, which is pretty much a full-length album, but it's kind of up in the air as to its status because it consists entirely of one 33-minute long dungeon synth song. If dungeon synth is at this point officially an old enough genre to have subcategories, I would consider this to be very hard dungeon synth. It's super minimalistic with not a lot of leeway given to the listener in terms of grabbing your attention. Like, this music just exists, and you can enjoy it or not, but it's not going to make any effort to grab the ear of someone lacking the requisite attention span. You get these repetitive clusters of notes communicating with each other over the top of the cosmic drone in a way that could be described as esoteric, melancholic, and honestly hauntingly beautiful. Again, if this album was done by anybody but a politically incorrect Finnish wacko fond of showing his wiener to people, it'd probably be considered some sort of modern day classic in the genre. My personal favorite moment of this song is coming up right here as we get out of another one of those note clusters Silvers to revisit that cosmic pulse from the beginning of the song. Got those Klaus Schulze-esque high-pitched swoopy bits going on in the background. Then when the note clusters come back in, it's just this really beautiful short musical phrase repeating off into the abyss before we finally hit the ultimate form of that pulse from the beginning of the track as the signal distorts and eventually fades away into nothingness. Big fan of that Silver Serpent album. Big fan of, honestly, all the Goatmoon. It's all pretty fucking dank, and I would highly recommend checking out that newest Goatmoon material if you haven't already. Thanks for listening, or watching, or whatever you did, and I'll see you next time.
Good night! Shut up! Quiet! I said quiet! What's the matter? You deep or something?